Good morning, good morning, good morning from all of us here at Kadena Eco. Happy Mondays. My name is Tyler Benster. I'm the tech adoption lead with Kadena Eco, the hypergrowth arm of Kadena, best layer one blockchain out there. So what we do is we try to help accelerate builders, folks that are running projects, coming up with the next great Web3 applications for blockchain and try and help them reach the next heights, whether they need a grant in terms of capital from the $100 million grants program, or if there's a need for additional technical assistance or involvement on the technical roadmap. We're here to try and give builders the support they need in order to build great projects on Kadena and for the Kadena ecosystem. And this is part of our Project Spotlight series where we're highlighting builders on Kadena and folks that are running cool projects that those in the community may already be aware of, or in some cases just getting introduced to. And so we're really excited to continue this series here with our Project Spotlight for Unmarshal. So really, really excited to have Manohar with me here today. Hello, Manohar. Welcome.
Yeah, hi everyone. Sorry for the appearance. I think I'm dialing in from Singapore, where time is 2 a.m. now. So happy to like meet you all. So couldn't push it out.
Well, that's amazing. Talk about commitment to building right there and commitment to community. So thank you so much for joining us at 2 a.m. Singapore. That might be a new record for our YouTube AMAs. So that's fantastic. We
No
got
worries, no
Britain
worries.
coming in with some love here too.
Yeah.
So I have a ton of questions for you. But first, I just wanted to say to community, like always, we'll be monitoring comments on Twitter, on YouTube, on LinkedIn. So if you have questions or anything you want to say, please feel free to post them in the chat. We'll try and get around and make this as interactive as possible. But in the meantime, I have a ton of questions and stuff that I want to ask, just really to get to know you, to get to know the project, and to get to know a little bit of how you started building on Kadena. So maybe if we could start, it's always interesting, I think, with these chats for people to understand the people behind some projects. I'd love to hear just a little bit about how you got your start in blockchain and crypto and found your way to building with Unmarshal.
Yeah, so happy to kind of start from that. So I've been a software engineer throughout. I think for 8+ years, I've done worked on various sizes and shapes of softwares, all the way from a company which in fact acquired Uber in Southeast Asia. So happy to back to Singapore, where it all started. And around 2020 is where, because of my huge background and experience with building high scale backend services and data services, a couple of blockchain applications asked my help to set up their backend, like the dApp servers, right? So while helping them, I kind of realized that blockchain, while it's a great invention and solving problems at the immutability and the way the data being written, etc., but it doesn't have a proper read layer. So every data, like whatever the transactions that happens within a block, goes and sits in the block, and there is no way for anyone to query across the blocks. So that's kind of opened up a huge opportunity for a lot of people. I think the graph was one of the path breaking applications to start in this space, the blockchain indexing space. And they focused more on the micro level data. For example, if you write a smart contract, and graph helps you get the data for that smart contract, but later, if people want to know the macro level data, things like this is my wallet address and give me all the transactions I've made, or give me all the tokens I hold, etc., right? Like these kind of queries were not answered by anyone, and that's where we kind of picked Unmarshal. And with our experience, both my co-founder Shiv and I have similar background, helping a bunch of multi-billion companies to handle their data and backend services. So that looked like a right choice of problem to solve for us. And then we were pumped about Web3, what it has to offer, and like when it came to building infrastructure for it, we just loved what the space we were getting into. And then like we know how exponential growth Web3 has seen, and we always knew that like there needs to be infrastructure to support it, and we were happy to just like jump into it.
Yeah, thanks so much for that context. I think that for those of us that have tried to build little applications, or whether it's a notification when a particular transaction goes through, that you're quickly surprised. You sit down with Python open and you write a few lines of code, and then you realize that actually querying the ledger is pretty complicated without third-party services on basically any
Yeah.
blockchain. And I think that was a awakening for me. I remember when I first wrote my first like little Ethereum DApp, whatever. I was like, what the heck why is this so terrible? Why is my life miserable writing this piece of code that should be trivial to look up? I don't know, the ratio of assets in on Unipool or something like that. And so I think that experience of trying to facilitate what is possible and making it into something that's pragmatic and practical is really valuable. And I know that it's going to be very exciting to see the Kadena integration with Unmarshal coming live here. So we've already touched on a little bit, but I did want to focus a little bit at the beginning and just make sure that we set the stage here. So for those that are learning about Unmarshal for the first time here today, what is Unmarshal in a nutshell, and what do you offer? What do you do?
Yeah, so Unmarshal is a blockchain data infrastructure in its basic sense. And if you are interested in any blockchain data, it can be like simple questions like how many wallets exist on Kadena, and how many transactions, or what is the volume, or the sophisticated questions like that, to a simple one like, hey, here is my wallet address. I want to know all the tokens I hold, and what are the transactions are made over the time, and what is the profit and loss of my holdings, etc. This is specifically in terms of wallet transactions. You might not see Unmarshal directly, but if you are using a Kadena, and if you are using a wallet that tracks your Kadena assets, then Unmarshal might be behind it, powering their stack. So we are a B2B service. We work with your favorite apps rather than you directly, and we help them build the apps that help you access your blockchain data, not only at wallet level, but also at micro level as well. And then we were in a multi-chain ecosystem. I think we started with a few chains, and then there were like bunch of other chains that we added. But I think Kadena kind of pumped us up. There are like various reasons. We have friends at I%. I think like that's one of the a cool Kadena project, and they are
Yeah,
building. I think like one more great thing about Kadena is the how people or projects are building with each other, right? Like there are 4 or 5 groups where Kadena is not even like, none of the Kadena people, project people are in that group, but we are kind of discussing and making sure how to make sure Kadena has all the right tools and right information. I'm part of a lot of conversations where how to kind of get the right data, build the right applications to make sure Kadena succeeds. I think this kind of energy, it's very rare to see in the community. I mean, projects and foundations always have the interest to kind of push this project, but within the project members, within the ecosystem members, having this kind of energy and supporting each other, I think they were throughout this journey of our integration into Kadena. So they are the ones who like kind of introduced us, and then it goes same to a lot of other projects that are coming up on Kadena. So we work with each other very well. So I think it's a great place to be in.
absolutely. I think that's one of the reasons why I'm excited to do these type of conversations and to be working in this community, is because the community is so fantastic, and it's so organic, and it's inclusive in that anyone can come, start building, prove their metal, show what they've got in terms of chops, and is just instantly embraced by community, and finds those first users, finds those first colleagues to collaborate with, and does the hard work of evangelism and onboarding people. So
Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing. Kind of the energy of Kadena Army is absolutely why we're all able
Yeah.
to sit here today.
It's more like we didn't find Kadena. Kadena didn't find us directly, but it was ecosystem. There are like couple of steps like where we spoke to one project about integrating, and then they spoke to another project, and then we get grouped all together, and like we want to build this, and we want to make sure like every tool is available on Kadena ecosystem for people to continue building.
That's awesome. Absolutely love that. Okay, so we touched a bit on the indexing service that Unmarshal provides, which is this business to business offering that powers experiences that people in the community might use, whether it's through a wallet or another explorer or whatever you can imagine. And if then that type of integration, there's sort of a lot of different things that one could build. I'd love to hear from you some examples of the types of applications and projects and tools that people build using Unmarshal's data APIs.
Yeah. So currently we serve to more than 2,300 blockchain products, right? So not the individuals, but the products out there on various chains. And it starts from a wallet applications like a Frontier or MetaMask or different applications to even explorers, right? Like CoinStats is our a clientele. They use our data, and like bunch of other applications also use that data. And like we recently added a product called Parser, so that's more eminent. So every DApp that comes up on Kadena can use Unmarshal data to curate data for their specific smart contract without writing any code. So you can just just give us your smart contract address, and from there you can start curating data for that. And I think for community especially, there is an application called Xscan. It's a multi-chain explorer that built by Unmarshal to kind of answer a lot of questions about what exactly Unmarshal is. So it's a Google for blockchain data. So if you have anything like if you have address, transaction ID, or a smart contract address, go and paste it in xscan.io and see for yourself. Like the results across multiple chains will amaze you. So like pretty much, I think blockchain data inside it's like data itself is invaluable, right? Like there can be numerous applications that makes out of. So it can be just simple as foundation itself coming and asking, hey, how many wallets that exist on Kadena today, and how many transactions we've made over the time, etc. All the way from individual wallet levels. Let's say you use Frontier or someone like MetaMask, and showing you what are the tokens you have and what are the transactions you have made over the time, etc. And all the way from like individual dApps and NFT applications, uh, asking about different data points for their interest.
I want to take a question now from community, from Hereby on YouTube. What's the difference between Unmarshal and Parsec? I'm not familiar with Parsec, so hopefully you are, and if not, we can offline it.
Yeah, I know. I think like Parsec, when they started, they started at like base level of APIs for data, but Unmarshal exists for a lot more than 1.5 year across. I think recently they announced about some Tsunami APIs. That's what Unmarshal has been doing for a really long time. So we have around 36 APIs when it comes to DeFi, and close to 18 APIs when it comes to NFTs, all the way from looking at what are the NFTs a particular wallet holds, and what is the owner history of an NFT, and transaction history, like lot of different APIs that are interested for people who are building on top of blockchain. And Unmarshal is a whole ecosystem, not just API. So we serve this blockchain data in any format that companies require it, not just APIs. It's a push notifications as soon as you make a transaction and that transaction succeeds, and if you want to get notified, Unmarshal can help you there. and it's also for analytic purposes as well. If any smart contract comes in and they want to know how their user base is growing and how their retention rate is there, etc. Right? Like these are the important questions for a particular dApp to improve and kind of succeed in any ecosystem. They have to look at the right metrics, do the right analytics to make sure that they are in the path of growth. So Unmarshal is helps there also. So if you come to me and ask me any data point in even in a CSV format, Unmarshal would be able to do it. So those are the major aspects differences even compared to the graph if it comes to Kadena or any other project. So Unmarshal is more of a data first solution that rather than API or analytics first.
Fantastic. Thank you. I know that'll be tremendously exciting for developers that are here with us here today. I've seen a couple already making comments and know that there may already be some users of Unmarshal or first users that are going to be excited to interact with the service. I'm curious if you could just give us a quick update, if you don't mind, on how the integration with Kadena is going, and if there's any timeline for when builders might get their hands on using Unmarshal.
Yeah, I think it's all ready to be deployed. I think some of the services we've already released, and Xcan will probably come sometime this week. So I mean, like it's a I mean, like we want to be sure that like these services meet the standards of Kadena that is trying to set, right? So we're also very happy the way it kind of came out. I think everyone was very keen on how these APIs would work, and Kadena's engineering team worked very closely with us and on testing these APIs and making sure we polish it in our right way, so that like a lot of ecosystem players can benefit out of it. So great working with them as well. So those testings and those back and forth has been done, and like Xcan also will release sometime this week.
Awesome. And I'm curious how you found the experience of building and integrating with Kadena's blockchain. Were there areas that were harder than you expected, some things that were easier than you expected? Just curious kind of what the overall impression was.
I think like it's bit different compared to like other EVM chains. I think for the betterment of performance when it comes to scaling these rights or trades, scaling the transactions per second. I think like that was bit challenging, and as a ecosystem, I think everyone was supporting. As I told, I think I might be mentioning a lot, but I cannot miss them mentioning about hypercent. So their engineers were also part of figuring out a lot of Kadena's internals, and then like finally the integration turned out to be a really a successful one. And then I think it's a growing ecosystem, and we all work together to make sure that the next developer, a next project that's coming on Kadena, builds much smoother than we had. So that's a fantastic thing about it. But I think like that's how I think it took a little while as well. So if it was the EVM chain, it would have directly added, but because of the difference in how Kadena is set up, so there was bit of delay, but it was an interesting learning opportunity for us to index something at a scale of Kadena. And one great thing about the way we wanted to build this is not just about you searching your assets within one chain, but we wanted to give a holistic view for any person who's trying to look at his assets in Kadena. So if you come in and just search for your wallet address, you like generally existing services, you have to switch chains to see what are your transactions. But with Unmarshal, with Xcan, you can see your balance across multiple chains in just one place, and we'll also show total of that in one chain as well. So that's pretty fascinating, the way we wanted. I think it also comes from our projects itself to make sure that it's much smoother. So we were not trying to build what we had for other chains. We were like trying to build something that's unique and make like it serves the customers without any ambiguity.
Very cool. I think that, two responses for me. The first is that software is, of course, this tower of abstraction that
Mm,
few among us understand the details of what the analog voltage is at the NAND gate in our computer, that then allows for the binary calculation of the
mm,
table lookup to go forward. And the people that understand that, maybe they don't understand how a graphics card driver works and how actually the compositing of pixels onto the screen occurs. And the people that are working at the application layer, drawing, saying, I want a button here, I want an X there, probably don't understand how that graphics layer works. And so I think that there's this beautiful composability to software that we see. And so Unmarshal is providing this fantastic service where you've done the hard work of learning how to do this integration, to listen to the blocks that are coming off of the 20 different chains that are running in parallel, how to bring that information together into one unified data source, and then allow an API that is data first to allow people to bring in and draw the information. And so it's fantastic to hear about your experience building, which sounds like it was both challenging but also rewarding. And ultimately, what's also great is that anyone that comes after can now stand on top of this tower of abstraction that you've made a meaningful contribution to. And now they don't have to do that hard work, and they can use this pretty API that lets them pull this data that might be pertinent to their application.
Yeah, I think that was exactly the reason why Unmarshal even started, right? So, if there should be like one person doing one job, and then the rest of it should be in a way where each person comes in and fits together really well in a puzzle that makes this whole ecosystem vibrant, and not everyone has to do the same hard work again and again. So that in that perspective, I think it's a overwhelmingly uh, a great experience, kind of setting this stage up and then kind of looking from next, like to see what applications kind of unfold in Kadena ecosystem.
Switching back to Unmarshal, you mentioned just a little bit. You guys have been around for some period of time, and clearly you've built out now infrastructure on a number of different blockchains, and now Kadena. I'm curious, what stage of development is Unmarshal at as a project, and where do you see the project going over the next few years?
Yeah, I think like generally we've been builders and like we kind of know like what is required for the next 2 years. I think when we started, we immediately saw that there was a lack of macro level data, macro level data application layer. So that's why we started with the APIs, and then we saw that with the I think like Web3 applications were like more of bare minimum UI components rather than a fully fledged application. So that's where we kind of realized when you say a new age application, right? It's not just about showing the data. It's about keeping users informed about every transaction within this fraction of seconds of that transaction being happened. If somebody sends you any tokens, or if there's a activity in your wallet, you have to be kept informed. So that's where the notifications came in, and with the same data, we have the same structure and help everyone. And we looked at like smart contracts perspective as well. How can they build sophisticated applications? I think if you look at any exchange for that matter, right, it has very bare minimum AI UI. You have like swapping token and the token which you want to swap to, and pretty much that's it. But if you look at any stock exchange or any exchange in the web 2 sector, you are offered enormous amount of data for you to make the choice of whether making that exchange, buying that thing or not. Right, so that is the level of sophistication we want to bring to Web3 as well, and that's where the parser came in. So parser is more of like no code smart contract indexer. So you would just give us the smart contract address, and we go fetch every piece of information this smart contract has generated across multiple chains, and then give it to you in more of a SQL database. So you can just write APIs. Like there's already integration for API, so you can use that, or you can use for notification, or you can analyze the data to see how your application is performing, if there are any errors, or if users are coming in, or if the total value is going up, etc. Right? So this is whole ecosystem around the data being built. And then in the next 4 or 5 years, I think like we want to be the default uh, a data solution, a default query layer on top of blockchain. I think that's where there were plans to come up with the Unmarshal chain, where we utilize this data, like kind of create the data and then put it in a way where it's more accessible to everyone, and it's verifiable as well, where they are not just using the data from a standalone, a centralized application, but rather than a network of people who are querying this data. So those are like pretty fascinating plans for us to kind of build this out, and we are like trying to kind of come into as many blockchains as possible, and the vibrant ones where we can help them grow from very early stages. I think like when the Kadena's plans around building the ecosystems are solid, and we want to be part of it, and we want to kind of be part of such journeys where building an ecosystem from ground up, and we are there to kind of witness it, and we are there to kind of assist it.
Love that energy, that vision, that passion. Sometimes I joke that crypto's almost like this decentralized version of the Build Back Better bill. That you look at this early generation of finance tools. If you go on TradFi and you go on like Schwab and you do some trading with their Street Edge trading tool, it's this terrible experience for you. You like launch this Cisco virtual machine application, and then your eyes are just absolutely assaulted with a million pieces of information that's very confusing. You have to click weird things. There's esoteric shortcuts versus you go on KuCoin or OKCoin or Coin Metro or Coinbase or these other applications. You get similar information level of sophistication. You have level 2 market data, you have level 3 market data, tick data is being presented, but it's much more intuitive. And then you look at various DeFi applications that allow you to execute fairly sophisticated trades. And once again, the user experience is sort of being solved. Of course, blockchain still has a long way to go in terms of that onboarding of users to that experience. And I
Yeah.
think that there's folks that are obviously working on the wallet side of that and self-custody and trying to figure out how to make it easier for people to manage without needing to be exposed to private keys that can sync their portfolio. But I think that seeing that step and march towards progress of saying, well, how do we take some of the best parts of traditional finance, namely the accessibility, but improve even the user experience story while removing some of these private gatekeepers, removing the sensors, removing the centralized sources that can stop or start markets, removing the data feeds that are solely owned by a single source that has a monopoly.
Yeah.
And so I think it's going to be very interesting to see how services like Unmarshal contribute to this democratization and decentralization of this information, because on some level, information can be decentralized in a ledger, but if it's hard to access, if it's hard to read, then maybe you have more centralization because only one person put in that effort to learn how to read the API from the blocks themselves, write all that custom parsing code. And so in that sense, I think what Unmarshal is doing is in some sense helping fulfill part of that decentralized dream, to say that here, let's make a service that then has equal access.
Yeah. And also I think like there are various levels, right? I think I totally get sometimes like data can be too overwhelming as well, but it has to be maintained in a right abstraction. So you look at like where the user is coming from. If it just needs to swap a token and he understands, show the minimalistic UI. But if you are working with a seasoned trader, then you need more data. I mean, like building things in a abstracted way based on who's using
building things because of lack of data accesses to different things. I think we want to kind of solve the remove the second point at all. And then the second important aspect, as you mentioned, kind of removing the barriers and especially around the data access. I think it's pretty fascinating in this journey to make sure that like everyone has information about the blockchain. I think even though we keep saying data is public, but if people can't see that, then it's kind of absolutely a no-brainer, right? So you ought to kind of make sure that if that public data is accessible and people can look at this data and then make sense of it. That's why I think even if you look at Xcan integration of Kadena, you can even look at the code of a smart contract. That's pretty interesting. So similar to Etherscan, I think we didn't have this until now. It was mostly for users to kind of come in and see their transactions and wallet addresses. But with Kadena, we've also come up with a way to verify these transactions and look at, I think, just verify the smart contract data as code as well to make sense of.
Yeah, I think that distinction between information being public and information being easily accessible is a really critical one. Like, for example, many of us may know in the United States that medical information in terms of how much different operations cost at hospitals tends to be public now, which is kind of crazy. Except you have to download a spreadsheet and look for which line item out of 50,000 billing codes is the thing you're interested in, which is not very accessible. And so if you're like, hey, I have a broken finger, which hospital should I go to get this addressed? It's public information. It's not accessible information. And so in a similar vein, if you want to look up, maybe you're interested in a new token that's launched or having an IDO or a new NFT sale, and you're saying, hey, I want to see what kind of activity is happening there. I could tell you to just go search this, 30 gigabyte binary file with all these, block history. But for most of us, that might be public, but not accessible. And so in that sense, data provider APIs, different ways of consuming data become important because that allows people to then build that layer on top of it that makes it easier to track what is the progress like in terms of NFT sales so that I can use some other source to help validate maybe what the project is saying, trust but verify. Or maybe I can track different transactions of a particular user whose trades I admire, or maybe and on and on and on. I can see the health of a particular ecosystem. I can track, how decentralized or centralized something is. So I think the applications really are endless here for what people will be able to do. Hey, Mano here. I think I lost your video here. I don't know if it's just.
Yeah. I think like this is.
Oh, no worries. We can still hear your audio. So, you're back. Look at that. Beautiful.
Cool.
Well, we're getting towards the end here. We have some appreciation and love coming from our great community here on YouTube and elsewhere. I think as we kind of start towards wrapping up, I want to talk a little bit about the current market conditions and also be a bit more future focused as we come towards an end. But I was curious how you look at the opportunities and challenges of the current crypto climate in terms of for yourselves at Unmarshal and for builders out there in general.
Yeah, I think generally this is what I tell in our communities as well. I think this time is for people to build, and there's less noise and there's less things to worry about in terms of like other events, right? Like worrying about your token price and like maybe listing, etc. So it's time to just keep your heads down and build. And I think like as a community, we have to kind of a group together and support the teams to make sure they survive this whole a session like winter, how long ever it lasts, and then come out of it in a successful manner. I think it's just now is the time to make sure. I think it may be a message to projects or developers who are building on Web3 as well. I think keep your costs cut and make sure that like you are building the right things. You're building in a way where the growth metrics are driven. It's not about the token price anymore. It's about how many users are using your applications and how much value it's adding to them. I think it's also kind of a kind of a thing that was supposed to happen for people to uh, look at things that matters, right? So look at how many users are using and how many community members are actively participating and how your governance is kind of taking it. So it's kind of going back to basics and building things in right way for a market to pick up and then kind of go from there. And obviously there are a lot of good folks like Kadena and others who have set up budgets to support their ecosystems through grants and other meanings. So it's really great to see these kind of initiatives, and I think it's like our job is to just keep building the right applications for the scale.
Absolutely. Now is the time for builders. We saw this in 3D printing, to look at a totally different industry. There's this huge wave of hype in 2009, 2010, 2011. And there's this crescendo of, economic bubble in terms of the public stocks, in terms of, massive entrepreneurial activity. And then, the market kind of crashed and tanked, at least locally, but the builders kept going. And then you fast forward another 5-6 years, and suddenly, the technology may not be talked about with the same fervor, but it's everywhere. It's, parts are in the planes that are flying, the cars that we're driving, and dental implants, and, medical operations, in consumer goods and manufacturing, just freaking all over. And so I think that as we look at crypto, it's of course the Gartner hype cycle, or whatever, preferred analogy you want to make. But there's sometimes these ideas that there's these big waves of hype that has a little bit too much speculation, because there aren't enough actual products or things that are being built to sort of channel that energy into, economically speaking. But then that triggers this huge wave of builders, which we're currently in. And now I think when we come out the other side of this, there's all these projects, Unmarshal among them, that are building amazing infrastructure, amazing tooling, and great products that will come out the other side and make blockchain just feel a little bit more like magic, where it's this service layer that is providing this decentralized and distributed service that provides key infrastructure, but ultimately is a silent supporter of whatever the end goal is for the user experience. That, at the end of the day, nobody cares from a practical standpoint how a SHA-256 function works. And there's probably no reason why anyone needs to see a SHA-256 hash. For most of us, that's not part of whatever we're trying to do on a computer or a phone. Yet that's a fairly ubiquitous experience in crypto today. And so I think that as we sort of see this next frontier, it's about building in these layers of abstraction, about building that better user experience, about allowing new products and projects to be realized that build on this infrastructure such that it feels like magic, and people don't need to worry or even know about how it's being built behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think totally get it. I think there are like a lot of even the applications we are talking, maybe the browser, and there are a lot of internals that people don't really need to understand. I think that to get to that level, I think Web3 has to come a long way. I think it goes it goes into like if you want to understand like internal of each smart contract transaction, it takes days, number of days for a seasoned software engineer, let alone normal people, right? So that's what we do internally. Like we kind of look at each transaction, convert the kind of byte codes into what makes sense, and like identify each field and kind of give you a one word sentence that says, hey, this transaction is a swap transaction between token 1 and token 2 for these many USD values. So that is the level of sophistication work that we do at Unmarshal. And I think that's what is about building a kind of cohesive like ecosystem. And then I think I totally get it. This is more about sticking together and then like kind of supporting each other until this winter goes out. And then I don't think I don't wish it'll be as long as the 3D printing session. So it'll be probably shorter a bear market.
Yeah, I think so as well. Want to take one last question from community. So from Sornet. Manohar, how did you first find out about Kadena? I think you touched on that a little bit earlier about the introduction through Hypercent. What makes you excited about Kadena, and what direction would you like to see Kadena go?
Yeah, I think as I kind of answered a couple of questions. I think like something that makes exciting is about how people support each other, and we love working with any chain from the start because we like it's something kind of looking from a smaller humble beginnings to go all the way up from here together as a group. Rather than just being one part of very like in a big ocean. I think this is what we love working with newer chains, and Kadena has been blessed with amazing ecosystem and amazing community. So like just wanted to be part of it, and I think the direction. I think it's all. We've been kind of together and we've been working in the right direction. I think in the same direction if we kind of continue supporting projects at this kind of time and then growing together. So I think like Arena would be a very big thing, right up there, and in no time.
Right on. So some love and appreciation from the community here. This has been a really wonderful conversation. It's been fun for me personally to get to know you a little bit more, get to know Unmarshal a bit better, some of the perspective and philosophy that drives you forward. I think we all appreciate you showing up here today in such a big way from Singapore. I know community recognizes you
Thanks so
sacrificing
much.
some sleep to be with us here today. So just a huge thank you from community and from all of us here at Kadena and Kadena Eco for joining us and for all your work. Just huge appreciation from community once again. It's been a great chat, and I know we'll be hearing and seeing more from you at Unmarshal, and everyone's going to be very excited by the upcoming product launch here as you really get XScan off the ground here for Kadena. And I know there'll be many projects and folks building with you in the upcoming days and weeks. So really excited to see where that goes.
Yeah, excited as well, and thanks a lot for having us here. So looking forward to kind of many more discussions, and hopefully I don't have to wake up at 2 a.m. and like look like this. Kind of had a flight yesterday also, so will be in better shape and forms to kind of like interact with the community. Thanks a lot for having me here.
Right on. Thanks all. Be well.